Today is a good day because I found my Croc flats that I used to wear during my food service internship. And they're very comfortable to wear. And now I'm gonna wear them to work because there's a lot of walking. Hello, good morning. Welcome back to another day in the life of a dietitian vlog where I take you, or try my best to take you along with me throughout my day. I currently work as a clinical dietitian in the hospital, and I love to share bits and pieces of this type of career with you guys. So if you like this kind of content, make sure you press the subscribe button down below and like this video so I know that you want to see more of them. And it seemed like you guys really liked the last one, so I'm going to be doing another one. Welcome to my day. You know, it's like what normal people do. Okay, so while today was a long day because every time you work 8 hours, it's a long day, it was a very short day. I feel like it went by so fast. I always think I have so much time and then I don't. But anyway, I'm gonna drive home. I'm gonna do yoga because it's my favorite way to decompress, to just release my mind and let myself flow. And then tomorrow I will sit down and talk to you guys about my day. It's super exciting. I got to talk to a couple patients about a plant-based diet and they were super into it and they were super open to it. So yeah, just I guess stay for the next couple seconds to see me tomorrow. Hello, it is now the next day and I have my pre-talk matcha because I just came back from teaching an Ashtanga class. I do also teach yoga and my throat is like, I need something. So I'm having some matcha and I'm looking over yesterday's notes. Whenever I make dietitian vlogs, I do write some notes and things that I want to talk about on a post-it. So if you see me looking down, I'm either looking at that or I'm just looking over my notes that I've taken when I was assessing patients so that I could go over a fun case study with you. So I'm gonna go over what happened throughout my day and then I'm gonna go over a really quick case study because you guys seem to really like case studies. So I'm gonna go over that after I talk about a little bit of what happened with my day today because I think it's pretty interesting, right? So just gonna take a little bit more sips of my daily matcha and I feel like this is a Tea Time Tuesday type of thing. Like now that I actually have stuff that I need to do with my life, not just sit down and talk, this is what Tea Time Tuesdays are going to consist of. Remember this intro? Every single day goes by so fast when I'm there because we think that we have time to do things, but assessing a patient's chart, looking through all of the things that they need to get and that needs attention, and then going up to see them, and then coming down to chart, they make a recommendation. I'm like,
you think you can do these things, but you just can't, Nemo.
I can't believe it's already 3 p.m. and I need to clock out at 4 p.m. So this morning I got there. I was supposed to see a NICU outpatient patient, but she didn't show up. What happened instead is my trainer took me to the outpatient clinic. So then when I'm supposed to be doing it in a couple of weeks, I'll be ready to go. And then I came back and I had to start assessing patients. So today, the first patient that I had to see was a change in TPN formula feedings. And normally we just have to see them in case the TPN isn't appropriate, or if it is, we need to make sure that it's meeting needs and we need to find out exactly why it was changed so we can write it down in our logs, mostly for legal purposes as well as so that the next dietitian isn't confused about what happened. So I looked into the patient's chart, the TPN was changed. The doctor was like, all right, I want to put him on tube feeding, but this doctor has worked closely enough with dietitians to know that we highly, highly appreciate it when they consult us about their tube feeding. Sometimes doctors make orders and they don't really loop in everybody else, and then we're kind of stuck in the dark like what happened? Then we got to make phone calls and figure everything out. So the doctor actually wanted us to approve of the formula that he was going to recommend. And I looked at it, I thought it was appropriate, I thought, okay, that's cool. I told the nurse that it was a-okay, and then they said that they were gonna go ahead and get started. But the reason why I wanted to mention this was because there's some concern that doctors and other healthcare professionals on the team of a patient don't really talk to the dietitian, or they don't really respect the dietitian. I remember when I was going through my schooling, one of the main professors over there, one of my biggest inspirational teachers, said that when she was starting out, doctors didn't even give her a second look. When she made her recommendation, they laughed. But now it's changing. People are starting to understand that food is medicine, nutrition is so important for a person to heal. So then after that, I had to look through a bunch of different charts for other patients, and actually I think three, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 of the other 5 patients that I looked at, and all of them were high risk, right? So 3 of the other 5 patients that I looked at had low BMIs. And I know it's not as prevalent on the social media world and in like very privileged places to have a problem that is a low BMI, but when somebody comes in with a low BMI, normally they are malnourished, they've lost a lot of weight, they haven't been eating, and in that case they qualify for a malnutrition diagnosis, which is something that dietitians are specialized to find out. We look for the ones with low BMIs, meaning 18 or lower. I'm a small person, so my BMI goes around like 18, 19, 20. So it's not impossible to have a low BMI and be a healthy person, but most of the time the BMIs that we have that are low are not the healthiest. So we go and we look and we see if the patient's been eating. For these cases, patients have not been eating or they have been slowly losing weight, and then from there we can make our recommendations. First, we have to make a note to the doctor saying like, look, this patient is malnourished. He needs attention. So that's how the doctors and the nurses know that they need to pay special attention to the nourishment of this patient. And then we either like raise their calories, or we give them things like insurers or medical supplements that are high protein, high calories, so that they can shoot their weight back up and be at a healthy place, because if they're at a low weight, that's low rate of healing. Okay, what else? Somebody actually wanted to know if it is a very antisocial job, if it's social at all, if we work together, or how, like, what is it like for clinical dietitians in a hospital? I feel like I drink like my tea so vigorously, like I just hold it here and I'm like, I don't know how it is in other hospitals, but for our hospital in particular, our dietitians all work together. So if I have a couple floors, I already saw all my high-risk patients, then I ask around other dietitians if they need help with their high-risk patients so that we can all help each other out. And it is a pretty social environment. We all talk to each other while we're charting. We stop and talk to each other about our lives. We ask each other for advice, what we would do for having trouble with a patient or a situation. Should I change reason for seeing this patient to tube feeding now instead of TPN change? Okay.
Just put, TPN formula change and tube feeding consult.
Or if we want to know what another dietitian would do in terms of like a tube feeding or dealing with a family, or just if they have any tips or tricks and stuff like that. So we all do talk to each other, and it's not just about nutrition and about the patients in our lives. We're able to talk to each other about food, and we're able to talk to each other about like vacations and our life in general. So I really appreciate and really enjoy the people that I work with, and I think that makes a really, really big impact on the working experience as a dietitian. And then the last thing that I want to touch on before I go into our very short case study is educations. Oh my gosh, yesterday was so cool because I not only had 1, but 2 patients who were super open to thinking about moving more plant-based. So one of the patients was a cardiac patient, another one was a renal patient, and I actually shared this in my Instagram story about the renal patient. So make sure you are following me on Instagram if you want to see those stories, because I tend to share a lot on there because it's like super fresh in my mind and I'm like super passionate about it. But I went over there, I gave them some education. It's required to ask patients if they want to know more about their diet, and they can say yes or no, but if they say yes, then I come up and I bring them some resources. I do bring them stuff that's from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Nutrition Care Manual, but the way I educate is completely up to me. It just has to be appropriate and receivable for that patient, because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink, you know? So if I go in there and I'm like, oh, vegan this, vegan that, like, I don't know who's really going to be open to that, but when I go in there with a calm tone, very understanding, and I give them options, I suggest to them, but I don't force them or tell them they have to or tell them like it's gonna save their whole entire life. I just tell them exactly what it has on the paper, and I also highlight and emphasize some of those parts, such as eating more plant-based proteins. For this heart patient, I told her how saturated fat can actually cause cholesterol to go up, and saturated fat is found a lot in animal products. It would be in your best interest for your health, for your cholesterol, as well as your triglycerides, to maybe decrease the amount of animal products in your diet. And I just talked about how a plant-based diet has been shown time and time again to lower the cholesterol levels of many patients who come in for the same reason, for heart failure, for cardiovascular disease. Every time I educate a patient who's interested in a plant-based diet, I give them brands. I wrote down like So Delicious and Silk because this patient in particular loved milk, loved dairy, and I was like, there are these brands that you could try out for a substitute, maybe even just for half of your dairy products, and see how you feel. And tell them to try things out, to experiment. Like, don't take my word for it, but go do your own go do your own research. Education and knowledge is the most empowering thing that you can give to a patient or somebody that you're trying to help. So same for the other patient that I had who had dialysis or who's on renal dialysis. His son wanted to know what his dad could eat, what he couldn't eat. And then I told him for people who have chronic kidney disease, a plant-based diet has shown to really improve the function of a kidney. I don't just say these things because I want people to save animals. I want people to save themselves. And the science always shows time and time again that a whole foods plant-based diet with careful consideration and with careful planning with a registered dietitian or a professional has been shown to improve people's health. People who thought that they would die or be on dialysis forever are now living dialysis free. Maybe they're going less to the dialysis center, or maybe they've lowered their medications, or maybe they've gone off medication. If I could tell people about that, then I will use my platform as much as possible. And it was really cool, because the son was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I think I really want to look into that plant-based diet. And he wrote it down too. I'm gonna take a sip of this. And last but not least, we have a very short case study. Now I know this video might have been a little long for you. I just like to talk a lot about this. Can you guys tell? I'm super passionate about it. I love it. Alright, so this is one of my patients who had a low BMI. Let's say her BMI was 16. So she came here because she had an altered mental state, and she lives with her daughter. But when she was grocery shopping, she told me that she was reaching for her cereal, and all of a sudden she ended up at the hospital. Now we got triggered to see her because she had a low BMI, but when I went to go look at her chart, she's had a low BMI. She's been at the same weight for years. So it could either be somebody who's been malnourished for a long time, but we just haven't caught it, or somebody who's naturally petite and small. And that happens a lot with older women because they're just a lot smaller. They still eat, but you know, they're just small frame, thin ladies, and it's important for us to see anyway, because in the case that there is malnourishment, we can make a diagnosis. In the case that there's not malnourishment, we can just say, hey, it's okay, don't worry about it. They're fine, they're eating. But this lady in general has been having abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting as well before she came in for an altered state of mind. Her daughter said that she has been very in and out and confused. Today when I saw her, she was in a better state. So I go in there, I see that her blood sugar is kind of low. I see that she hasn't really been eating that much. I see on the chart, the nurse said that she was gagging at breakfast. So when I go down there, I do a nutrition focused physical exam. And that's where we check for malnutrition, muscle mass wasting, as well as fat wasting. And we look in areas like the temple, because if you put your finger to your temple, you should have some bounce there. But if it's hollow and bony, that can be an indicator of muscle mass loss. If you look at the cheeks and you touch the cheeks and it's kind of like that, there should be some fat here. Like, these are called your buccal fat pads. And for those who have severe malnourishment, usually the first thing to go is like the face. So if it's not like bouncy right here, we touch the cheeks to see if it's just skin and no fat. For me, I feel like a nice little bounce here, but a lot of our malnourished patients, it just feels like skin. So that's how we can tell for fat loss. We also look at a patient's clavicle as well as their shoulder to see if bones are protruding. We look at their arms to see if we can see the bone. The chest area, we see if the ribs are super prominent. For some people, it's just natural. Her arms did have a little bit they had a little bit going on, but I looked at her clavicle and her shoulders and the bones were just protruding, they were prominent. And then I looked at her her temple and her skin was sunken, her eyes had like dark circles. That in itself is an indicator of muscle mass and fat loss, so that's something that I could write down and put in my malnutrition diagnosis. And then I noted that she wasn't eating very much, she's been nauseous, she's been in and out of the house and the hospital, so that right there is an indicator of not getting enough energy in the past week or so, which is another marker of malnutrition. And she's also at a low BMI. She has had some weight loss, but not too much. It hasn't been so severe to qualify that as like a marker of malnutrition. But for us at least, we need at least 2 things to qualify for malnutrition: muscle mass loss, fat loss, that's already 2, and then we have 1 that is low intake. So I was able to take those and make my malnutrition diagnosis. But to help her out, I asked her if she's been on if they put her on any anti-nausea medications, and she said no. She'd really appreciate that. So I talked to the nurse, and the nurse was like, she has anti-nausea medications available on her chart, she just hasn't been getting them. So I was like, would you be able to? So maybe it'll increase her PO intake. PO means by mouth, sorry, I'm just like talking dietitian. I talked to the patient a little bit more about her food. I was like, so can you eat anything at all? And she's like, no, when I take a couple bites of solids, I just feel nauseous and sick. I've been trying here and there a little bit. I asked her if she was drinking her water just to see how she's been doing with her fluids. And she said, yes, she's taking sips here and there. So I said, would you be open to trying out a supplement like Ensure, which is basically like a high protein, high calorie shake, to see if that can maybe help you bring in some more energy? Because she did also complain about feeling dizzy and like out of it. It's things like seeing what your patient's situation is like and also trying to make it a teamwork thing. I'm not just gonna prescribe things, I'm not just gonna give her things. I wanna make sure that she'll be open to it, that she'll wanna try it, that she'll understand why I'm suggesting things to her. And in that way, it empowers the patient and lets them choose better. After all those recommendations were done, I went ahead and wrote it in my notes, signed it, made the malnutrition note, sent it out to the doctor so he could see if he approves or not, which hopefully he does. And then I went on to the next patient. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like these, again, make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you let me know in the comments below what you want to see. I do have a bank of questions and topics that I want to go over, so let me know. Please give this video a like if you liked it. I hope you're having a wonderful morning, noon, day, or night, and I'll see you next time. Maybe with another matcha.